You are Locked On Texans Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Houston on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In what might qualify as one of the strangest seasons in Texans history, it took another twist today as they lose to the Tennessee Titans in absolutely brutal fashion at home on a day where the Titans wanted to give you the football games on multiple occasions. The Texans could not do anything to even try to take back the victory from the hands of defeat, and it is a tough loss now. It's 7-5 on the season. This is the Locked On Texans Postcast this afternoon. Hello and welcome to the show, whether you're watching live or recorded. We appreciate you. I'm Michael Connor. He is former Texans offensive lineman who they could possibly use, Wade Smith. We are talking all things Texans as they lose this one today. We're going to talk about the overall brutal loss. I wanted to talk about the defense because where was the defense today? What might be missing for this team to get back into the right mindset? And then we'll take a look ahead at next week with the Jaguars game. You can start this season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with a $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, Wade, man, oh, man, where do we even begin with this thing in terms of the overall? The first half, it started off so great. I mean, you get a great kick return, and then one play, touchdown. It's like, okay, this can be a cakewalk of a day. Maybe they'll go put up 50-plus today on the Titans. And then after that, nothing. Nothing even resembled what the start of the game was, basically.
Yeah, Dameon Pierce has an excellent return to start off the ball game to get 80 yards off the rip. Then the next play, Cade Stover gets a 20-yard touchdown wide open from C.J. Stroud. And like you said, it felt like it was going to be one of those games. It's a cakewalk when you're talking about playing the Titans at home. There's been multiple times over the years. Titans are not good football teams. The Texans are a good football team in those seasons. And the Texans boat race them. Like they run through them and put up record-breaking numbers. And it felt like early on that was going to be. But then the problem with that is that you got to think about it. That following drive, they drove down there with pretty much ease and ended up with a field goal. But Will Levis starts off the game. I believe he started off the game 11 for 11. Yep. He was 11 for 12 at halftime. He was making it look easy. And then it wasn't just passing the ball well. I mean, you got to think they were running the ball up and down the field on the Texans too. Tony Pollard, I don't know what he ended up with, but I think he had somewhere around 130 yards or something like that rushing. Like the Titans just
119.
100. How much?
119 on 24 carries.
Yeah,
he was at 100 on. I think he was exactly 100 on 14 carries. So they slowed him down a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, the first half he was having his way. They were doing a great job running that traps up front. Getting movement in the run game and having their way with the Texans defense, but the defense was figuring out ways to keep him out of the end zone. And Will Levis was helping him out because his pocket presence is terrible. Like Will Levis, he was on the money with his passes today, especially to start off the game, but he probably gave up 5 sacks himself. Yep. Just him running into sacks or his pocket presence being so low that he is falling into sacks and helping the Texans out. And the Texans ended up, I think, with like 8 or 9 sacks. 8 sacks. It was a tremendous job of them finishing plays, but the Titans were trying to do everything they could to help them win the game. They muff a punt. They fumble the exchange between Levis and Pollard.
Yeah.
All these things happen, and the Texans they just wouldn't capitalize. And you got to think that the Texans were catching breaks because C.J. Stroud threw a couple of interceptions, and the Texans would get one of those errors from the Titans to where it wouldn't cost them. But overall, when you look at this team, man, all bets are off when you're talking about hey, there's certain games that they're supposed to win, and there's certain games that, hey, their competition they're playing against might be tough for them to get a win. You really just don't know what you're going to get right now out of the Texans. And a lot of it, I think, it stems from what's going on up front because you weren't able to run the ball at all game long. CJ, they're still consistently having issues with handling pressure right up the middle, which is crazy to me. You always block from inside out. And so once again, in a critical situation, they're trying to go in and score late in the ball game, and they just run the pressure. The Titans run the pressure up right up the middle. You get pressure. So CJ had a bad game.
Yep.
Any way you slice it, he had a bad game. At the same time, CJ is getting pressure in situations that he's not supposed to get pressure. And I really feel like it's causing him to do things he wouldn't normally do. And all these things go hand in hand. You cannot protect the quarterback at a high enough level. And then you also couple that with the fact that you're not running the football at all. How do you expect to beat anybody in the league? The Titans played like a 2-8 team when it comes to all the errors they had, all the things that they were giving up. They played like that. But then they were able to move the ball up and down the field consistently. Calvin Ridley was consistently behind the defense. Jalen Petrie getting hurt really hurt the Texans for a time there until Jimmy Ward comes up with a bunch of great plays back-to-back on a possession to get them back in the ball game. But like I said, all bets are off when it comes to the Texans. That was a game that you're supposed to win. That's a game that you're supposed to go ahead and run away with. It didn't happen for lots of reasons. But the consistent theme is, hey, you get an illegal shift on what would have been a touchdown to Nico Collins, and you end up missing a field goal on that drive that would have sent it to overtime. Instead, you would have won the game, or you would have forced them to have to drive down the field and win the game. The things that the Texans did, they didn't deserve to win that game. Yeah. They just didn't deserve to win it, and there's no other way you can slice it. And this is the league, man. Like, stuff like that comes back on you every single time. You cannot consistently blow opportunities like that to put a team away or to win a ball game that's a very winnable game. Fortunately for the Texans, in the grand scheme of things, when you're talking about playoff seeding in their division, doesn't matter. Once again, the Colts lose, and although the Titans win, the Titans
they've got 3 wins. They're no factor.
So they're not in play per se, but that was just a bad loss. Any way you slice it was a bad loss, and those are unacceptable. Those are unacceptable. There's you lose to Detroit was a gut punch, but it's against a team that you feel like is going to go to the Super Bowl. You know, that loss is not worse than what this was. This was a team that you could have easily beat, put away, and not easily. Everybody's in it, and I'm kind of upset because I don't like losing to the Titans. I don't like the Titans.
Yeah, we know you hate them with a passion.
I don't like them at all. And that team, it's not a good football team, and they come into your house and beat you, and they beat you up front. As far as their defensive line won the battle up front, that's hard to stomach, man, because
I don't know.
That's just not how it goes around here when you're talking about playing the Titans.
I don't know if you caught it during the week. I don't remember who said it on that Titans or defensive line. They were like, "Yeah, we see the weaknesses in the Texans. We know what we can get after." They knew coming in what they could do, and then they did it. Like that's the most frustrating thing. And I think this is again.
It's frustrating. I say it's disrespectful. It's disrespectful that you can have someone talk about you like that.
That's got 2 wins, and they're coming in and doing that. Yeah,
and then they come in and do what they said that they was going to do.
Yeah. To me, my fan side of it, you're a fan of football, but you are also a player, so we get both perspectives with you. But my fan side of it today, and I think for the majority of the fan base on a day like today, the Cowboys win was good, right? It was a lot of fun. There was some improvement in certain areas. There were still some things lacking, sure, but you know what? You went up there, you took care of your business, you handled them, and you kicked butt on the road. And then you and I ended that show the other night talking about, hey, this is going to be a game where you come back, like you said, and you clean up. They're in a stretch here before the bye where they play Tennessee and Jacksonville. Like, you couldn't have handed 2 better, or really 3 consecutive wins on a silver platter to you better than what they had with Dallas, Jacksonville, or Tennessee and Jacksonville all lined up in a row. These are the kind of things, though, that for a fan base, I know deep down in wants to believe and wants to think that this team can do something. These are the kind of things that keep people from being all in, like from thinking that you're a Super Bowl type of contender. Like, I know that the Chiefs today went and pulled off a last-second win over the Panthers, which, they're probably ticked off about. But, I just go through the AFC with it all, and you talked about playoffs, and the Texans are going to get there. Remember, this is a team that kicked Buffalo's butt earlier this season at home.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm not picking them to – I think Buffalo would smoke them right now. I think they'd have a hard time beating Pittsburgh right now. I know that they'd have a hard time beating Baltimore because Lamar Jackson probably just run all over them. And I know they're not beating Kansas City. So it's kind of like where I'm like trying to find a way in my head. Where do I think this team can get back to a spot where they make me believe?
See, I'm not opposite of that, but I feel like they can beat anyone and they can get beat by anyone. That's what I feel about the Texans. They can beat anyone and they can get beat by anyone. And when I watched what they did against Detroit, that lets me know they can beat anybody. They can beat, they should have won that game. They didn't win that game, and that's the part where you get frustrated and you say, well, they can't win those games. No, that was a very winnable ball game, and they tricked it off at the end. But that's a very winnable ball game. At the same time, when it doesn't matter who you pit them up against, sometimes they're going to play down to the level sometimes. Like I said, that Cowboy game, it started off where it was closer than we thought it would be.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, the Texans pulled away at the end, and so it looked like it was supposed to look throughout the ball game. But when you look at a big picture, man, they got to figure out what they're going to do up front. That to me is the determining factor if they're a competitive team or not. When you talk about Super Bowls and all that, if the offensive line continues to play at the level that it's been playing at, they are not a Super Bowl contender. Don't even talk about it. Because Super Bowl contending teams, the only team I can think of that had offensive line play at a low level like that, and then they actually made it to the Super Bowl was that year that Cincinnati went. And Joe Burrow was above his head, and you had all those receivers. You had Higgins, you had Chase, you had Boyd, you had Mixon running the ball. I think they had P. Ryan as the second running back. Like, all of their skill players were excellent. They were all healthy. And Burrow was being Burrow, and they were able to overcome the fact that the offensive line was struggling. But the disappointing thing with the Texans' offensive line is they invested a lot into these guys. These guys, and it looks so good at sometimes in pass protection, it looks so good. And then the next minute, it looks so bad. And they have critical errors. And a lot of times people talk about the coaching staff and the plays that are being called and all. I see a lot of things just not executed properly. I see a lot of guys running free in A-gaps when that's against the law. As an offensive line, it's against the law. That's rule number one. I teach my kids that in youth football today. 10U, protect the A-gaps. And for some reason, and it's not just this week, it's consistently week in, week out, having trouble doing that. They're not getting that done. And that's a problem. So if you have those type of problems, you can't expect the team to beat a good football team when it matters the most. You just can't expect that. And that's unfortunate because they have the ability to do it. Now, I don't know what's going on to where they're not doing it, but they have the ability to do it. Like, there's stuff going on, and it's not just the offensive line. You got C.J. Stroud throwing balls to defenders, throwing the ball into the dirt where he has no pressure and he's just inaccurate. That's hard to even put those words together. C.J. Stroud is inaccurate. He's never been that. And this season, all of a sudden, that's actually creeping up into some of the things that you can say. This was a bad day at the office, man. It was a bad day at the office for everybody involved, and it's just very disappointing to watch. And they still had the Texans we still had every opportunity to win that game at the end, and still couldn't get it done. It was bad ball all the way around. The worst play was the legal shift on a touchdown when you're going in trying to win the game. In those critical situations, you can't have plays like that. You deserve to lose, and that's what happened to the Texans.
Let's talk about the other side of the football today and what they did here in just a brief second here on the Locked On Texans Postcast. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? History, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. Or even if you did, well, maybe it's time to get yourself a little bit of a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they have not changed basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. You right now can get in with Hillsdale College on so many courses. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, Great American Story, A Land of Hope, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, and a brand new documentary-style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. One more quick message before we get back to our Texans discussion. I want to remind you guys about PrizePicks. If you're not playing PrizePicks yet, what are you waiting for? You need to get in on the action right now. Download that app. It is going to make all the games a lot more fun for you because you right now can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks, the best place to get real money sports action. Join the over 10 million users and sign up today. Like I said, download that app. Download that PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. It's our Locked On Texans Postcast. Under duress today, I think is the best way to put it, because the Texans lost to the Titans 32-27, falling to 7-5 on the season. I believe they had won 3 straight against Tennessee as well. And you know that what's her name? Amy Adams. I always used to call her on the radio. I used to call her Amy Adams Skunk. You know that she's probably sitting somewhere talking some, you know what, because the Titans won today. And they even wore their, you knew they wore those light blue pants on purpose today too. Those Columbia blue pants on purpose today, Wade. Just brutal, not fun, not one of those days where you want to watch football after. I don't know about you. I mean, for me, I don't want to watch football after this today. It's really spoiled my Sunday. But the defensive side of the football today, so often, and, they made some plays. You mentioned it earlier. I mean, Jimmy Ward, they obviously had big play. They made some plays. At times they had a ton of sacks. But the thing that was just so staggering today is that you let this Titans team come in here. And I know that Levis has been better since he's come back from his shoulder injury or whatever, but the guy could not miss. He was getting everything. Like, they were just getting chunk plays left and right. You could hear, I thought, I don't know if you caught it on the TV, the quick interview with D'Amico going into the half. I felt like you could hear his disgust in his voice for the way that the defense played in the first half, because all he mentions we got to play our swarm mentality. That was not it. What happened? Was this an overlooking of an opponent? Was this getting out coached? What was this today as to why the Titans were just gashing you left and right?
Well, first and foremost, I got to give credit to the Titans offensive coordinator and head coach Brian Callahan. His dad's on the sideline helping him out too, coaching the O-line. I don't know if he's the offensive coordinator, but I saw him on the sideline. I don't know if he's the offensive coordinator and the offensive line coach, but he's always been a long-time offensive line coach in the league. But their game
just
plan,
the offensive line coach.
Yeah, so their game plan running the ball was excellent, and their execution early in the ball game was excellent. The Texans did a bad job a lot of times filling with their linebackers. They were giving up the edge. The offensive line and the tight ends and the receivers for the Titans were doing an excellent job of capturing the edge, allowing running backs to get to the outside. It started with that they couldn't stop the run. Will Levis, like we talked about earlier, starts off 11 for 12, and the guys were open. He wasn't having to fit balls in the tight windows. He knew where he wanted to go with the ball. He was getting rid of the ball on time, on schedule, and they were doing an excellent job of taking advantage of different, would look like mental errors, double moves, just various plays that were being made by the Titans. It just looked bad. They started with the boot game early on. These two teams run a very similar offensive scheme. Mm-hmm. Same tree, same family when it talks about the Shanahan, Kubiak, all those type of guys scheme. They run the same stuff. They were able to get their tight ends on over routes early in the ball game. They just did an overall good job of involving everybody in the pass game, and then they ran the ball effectively in the first half. Give them their credit. The Texans did not tackle well at all. There was a play that I remember. Tony Pollard backed up. He gets hit, which should have been a 0-yard run. He gets hit by 4 different guys that had clear shots to bring him down. He breaks all 4 of those tackles, scoots out the back door, and ends up getting like a 12-yard, 15-yard run on that play. That was a microcosm of what that first half of the ballgame was. It was bad. Guys got to make plays in the box to shut some of that stuff down. And like I said, I think Jalen Petrie going out the game and hurt him. They still, we didn't play well up front. We didn't play well up front when you're talking about stopping the run. In the second half, the Texans played a lot better defensively, stopping the run defensively overall in the second half. But in the first half, it was bad. And then at the same time, at the end of the first half, the score was 20-17. And it would have been 17-17. CJ throws a pick, backed up, trying to score late, trying to tack on some more points. He throws a pick on a situation where it looked like him and Tank Dell were on a
Tank Dell.
It was Tank Dell, I believe. Or was it Mechie?
The Mechie one where he sits down on the route?
Yeah, it was Mechie. It was Mechie.
Yeah.
Mechie sat down, and CJ thought he was going to still go kind of hit that seam, split it, and it ends up in the pick. But despite how poorly the Texans played defensively in the first half, and despite turnovers, they were only down. The score was 20-17. And thing about it is, it wasn't like the Titans came out in the second half and just started dominating. They ended up turning the ball over, a time or two. They ended up having kick field goals. But when the Texans got the pick 6 by Jimmy Ward made an excellent play on the play before that, tackle for loss on a beautiful blitz that was called, run blitz that was called, makes a tackle for loss to the next play, pick 6. You think to yourself, all right, now the Texans are going to turn it on and put this game away, because that play was basically last play of the third quarter. And so you think going to the fourth quarter, the Texans are going to finish. They did not finish. The Texans, we did not get it done. We needed to get done. Texans defense, just like you said, there was that swarming and fundamental stuff. You got to tackle guys. You got guys, and you got to feel properly when you have your linebackers. You saw it. I think that was in the first half when Pollard breaks that long run. Toa kind of feels the gap wrong. Him and a defensive lineman end up in the same gap, and the ball is able to bounce to the outside, and they get a huge run on that play. It just wasn't good enough, man. The defense, I don't think it was something to where they got out-coached. I think they got outplayed, because the Texans defense isn't complicated, and for the most part, people know what the Texans are going to do. Like, it's not like the Texans are doing a lot of tricking people. They're going to line up and say, we're better than you. And more times than not, they are. They're one of the better defenses in the league. Daniil Hunter was winning one-on-one matchups all day long. Will Anderson was getting sacks.
They had 5 sacks between the two of them.
Right. They were picking on their offensive linemen. So a lot of those one-on-one matchups, they were winning. But at the same time, there was a lot of situations where you're missing tackles. You're not finishing plays the way you need to. You're getting penalties for defensive holding, things like that, like defensive holdings, illegal contacts on plays where you would have got off the field. Those type of things happen, and you keep a bad team in the ball game. You make a bad team believe that they can win that ball game. And when that happens, remember, everybody here is in the NFL. Everybody here was first team All-American, or they were really good somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And so when you have somebody that has ability and you give them confidence, especially when they haven't had a lot of good things happen to them all year, they're going to start to believe, and then you can make things happen. And that's what ended up happening today.
Just an absolutely brutal day, man. The Jets game was about as bad as it gets. This one, though, it's a close one to me. It is an absolute close one based on the way that, just from the standpoint of, I didn't expect it.
Yeah, I think this one was worse than the Jet
at all. You think so?
Yeah, the reason why I think this is worse than the Jet game, because you're at home. First of all, you're on the road playing the Jets. The Jets.
It was a short week too.
It was a short week. You had a situation where I think it was Devontae Adams was his second game or first game back or there.
I think it was second.
I think it was his second game, and the first game was a dud.
Yeah.
That game just kind of set up. They were the underdogs in the game. That's how bad it was. They were actually the underdog by Vegas going into that game. So this game is definitely worse because they were 8-point favorite, I believe, going into this game. Like, you got to win games against bad football teams. If you want to be considered a legitimate Super Bowl contenders don't lose games like that.
Right.
And so the Texans have time. They're not worrying about somebody coming from the rear and winning, taking the division from them, but they have to figure out a way to be more consistent and more physical at the point of attack in the run game as an offensive team. They have to be more consistent out of the linebackers filling in the run game. The double moves that they got, the explosive plays that were given up throughout this game, like that stuff you can't have. And that hasn't been a consistent thing. That it seemed like that's more of an anomaly with the Texans. They're not giving up explosive plays like that. So, maybe that's one of the things that happened that you kind of chalk up and say like, hey, stuff happens. But yeah, overall, this was it was a poor performance from beginning to end. When you're just talking about the overall look of everything that went down, they did a lot of great things in this game, but they were supposed to. You're playing against the Titans at home, a team that was a wounded dog that had no reason to believe that they could win this ball game. And they did stuff that made you see like that's why they're 2-8, because they're doing goofy stuff like that. Like Will Levis is throwing a flat route right to Jimmy Ward. Pick six. He's running himself into sacks. They're fumbling snaps to where they're having to give up. On 3rd and 4s, they're fumbling shotgun snaps. So now they're giving up, having to punt the ball, and then they're fumbling exchanges on 3rd downs to Tony Pollard. Like these things all happen throughout the game, muffing punts, and giving the ball back to the Texans. All these things happen. You say that's why they're 2-8. The Texans just did a lot of stuff that lets you know, like, well, this is why people are kind of second guessing if they're a Super Bowl team, because why are people still getting pressure in the A gap? So that's not normal. Stuff like that shouldn't happen. Why are the Texans? Why is CJ keep throwing the ball into the dirt? Like, what's going on with that? Like, there's these things that are always in the back of your mind over the season that you've seen. Like, well, why is this consistently happening? Why are we false starting? Why are we having illegal shifts and illegal contacts when we're supposed to get off the field? Why are all these little things, these knick-knack things happening that are reason why you notice that there's all these one-score games? I heard a stat while I was listening to the game where they were saying every home game has been a one-score game. Well, every home team that they played against has not been a team that it should have been a one-score game. They've played some good teams at home, but there's some games that they should have pulled away from. The Texans should have done a better job, but it's because self-inflicted wounds, undisciplined play, unphysical play up front, which is the opposite of what DeMeco Ryans embodies. That's why these games are so close, and that's why after a while you can't keep sticking your hand that close to the fire and not expect to get burnt. And that's what happened.
You mentioned it real quick before we get to our message, just on the differential in terms of wins and losses, the points in each game. I'll just run through them real quick. Just the difference in the points for each team. 2, 6, a lot, 34-7. I don't want to do the math on that one. 4, 3, and then 20. 2, 3, 7 or 8, 3, 24, and then 5 today. Every game's close. They don't. I mean, they've only had 2 blowout wins, and then they've had a blowout loss there. So it's just the way that this season has gone. Let's take a look at next week. What has to change for this football team as they take on the Jacksonville Jaguars? We'll do that next here on the Locked On Texans Postcast. Get ready to take on all the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You had some money on the Titans today. Congratulations. You did well. Because right now, the new customers can get $5, can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, the final, few moments of the Locked On Texans postcast this afternoon following a brutal 32-27 loss to the Tennessee Titans. The Texans now sitting at 7-5 on the season. Next week, well, it's another one of those games that you look at and you go, hey, this one's handed to you exactly what you need. The Jacksonville Jaguars are about as bad as the Tennessee Titans are. Can the Texans next week, Wade Smith, find a way to not have the same outcome against a very bad football team? I will tell you this. If they lose, if you go look at just points allowed this season by defenses in the NFL, who do you think's given up the most in the AFC, I should say?
I'm guessing Jacksonville.
It's Jacksonville. They're the only team that's this is not completely updated, I would assume, with some of the games going on. But Jacksonville's allowed 316 points overall this season, which is no other team in the AFC is allowed.
11?
Do what?
How many games have they played? Like 11 games?
They're 2-9. Yeah, 11 games.
Wow.
There's only one other team that's given up more, and that is Carolina with 340 plus whatever they gave up today to the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, if you can't outscore the Jacksonville Jaguars and what Mac Jones probably playing quarterback, I guess, I'm going to be honest with you. You just go ahead and we can write the script for the rest of the season. They'll go through the motions. They'll get to the playoffs, and then they'll lose in the first round if they find a way to do that next week.
One thing the Texans got going for them is they're not playing against Tony Pollard and the Memphis Tiger back. They're not.
Look at you! Look at you!
I'm throwing that in there. They're not playing against a running back like that. Travis Etienne has had a bad year this year. He's splitting time with, I think his name is Bigsby, is running back there, or Bixby, something like that. And so their running game is nowhere near what you saw, and you probably will see with the Titans. So it's going to be one of those deals where they're going to be depending on Trevor Lawrence to throw them to victory, and that plays into the Texans' favor as far as what they've been doing up front with getting sacks and getting consistent pressure up front. The reason why the Tennessee Titans was able to do so well today is because they were able to run the ball and throw it and keep the Texans off balance. I don't see that being an issue from the Jacksonville Jaguars, but at the same time, listen, man, if you come out and you commit penalties, if you come out and you turn the ball over, you come out and you don't put the foot on their neck early in the ball game, they'll start to believe too. You're going to have to go on the road to do it. It's always tougher to get a W on the road than it is at home. The Texans are a better football team than the Titans. They're a better football team than Jacksonville. They have to go out there and play like it. They have to go out there and, watch the film from what happened today. Just like you'll hear about 10 guys, 20 guys when they get interviewed today. Hey, we're going to watch this film today. We're going to learn from our errors and go back to work tomorrow. There was things that happened today that won't happen ever again. I don't think Kymie Fairbairn will miss a 28-yard field goal for the rest of his career. But guess what happened today?
I think he's missed multiple 20-something yard field goals this season, Wade. I think he's like 4 or 6 from 20 to 29.
I don't think it'll happen ever again. I just don't think it'll ever happen.
Not every game. I'll give you that one. It's not going to happen every game.
Chances are it's not going to happen. It's definitely not going to happen next game. But I will say this. All disappointment and disgust aside from this game, I do think after the Texans play a bad ball game, they usually recover and play a good ball game right after that. It's very rare. I can't think of a time where like the Texans played a really bad ball game and then the next game they look really bad too. And so I expect them to come out and play a better football game than what you saw today. And that'll translate into a convincing victory against Jacksonville, because Jacksonville's a bad team. Their coach is on the way out the door. He hasn't got fired yet, has he?
No, he hasn't. And
okay.
He's been non-committal on if Lawrence will be ready. We really won't know, it sounds like, till probably later in the week on if he's playing or not.
Right. So
it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be nice with the Texans being matched up against Bill Belichick next year.
You think that's where he's gonna be?
I don't know. I just reading everything, and everybody's like, "Oh, Bill Belichick makes a lot of sense here." I'm like, okay, sure. Bill Belichick. I don't think that hoodie plays in humid Florida.
Yeah, I don't know. Jacksonville, I don't care who coaches them. They're just one of those franchises that you expect not to do well.
Yeah.
And I don't know who they can get off the street, whether it's a Hall of Fame coach like Bill Belichick or whoever it is, that's going to change their fortunes. They're going to have to. There's so much that they have to do with their roster to help them become a competent football team. They're not there yet. So Texans got it. CJ Stroud has got to get back to playing more confident and playing his game. That's one. The offensive line has to do with their job so that he can do that. And then I think if those things happen, that the Texans will go out and it'll be a convincing victory. If CJ is shaky again, or the offensive line is shaky again, critical penalties, all that type of stuff, it's going to be another one of those ball games that's closer than it should be. And then it comes down to a play here or there that could go either way, and you find out on the wrong end of a win or a loss. And so that's the part that the Texans have to get corrected of, like, hey, when you got somebody that you can put away, or you can when the Texans were up 24-23 and they had the ball after that point, you got to go put them away.
Yep.
And they were on a drive and then they ended up not scoring. And then I believe it might have been an interception on that drive, if I can remember it correctly, but didn't finish that, and ended up, the defense ended up holding serve and basically just giving up a field goal to where it was still where it needed to be at that point. But no, that wasn't it. That's when they gave up the touchdown. That's when they gave up the long play to
the 70-yarder or whatever.
Yeah, how do you pronounce his name?
Oh God, you're gonna put me on the spot here.
Yeah,
I don't know. Okwano? Is it Okwano?
Maybe
Okonkwo,
something like that.
Damn it! Yeah. I know it, and I just can't. It won't come out right. I'm sorry to him. Yeah,
Texans just got to move on from this game. I'm ready to move on from this game because there's no excuse for coming out with a W. I mean, coming out with an L on that game. You should have been a W. And Texans did too much stuff well, and the Titans did too much stuff poorly to not get a W there. But the problem is that the Texans made critical errors that took points off the board and didn't score in money situations. Like, hey, if you're a 28-yard field goal, you kick the field goal, tie the game up, you try to stop them and maybe win in the regulation, or you're going to overtime. It just it was a bad day at the office, and they're gonna have to get over this one pretty quickly because after the Jacksonville game and the bye week, there's nothing easy about what's coming up. The Dolphins are starting to look like the team that people thought they were going to be.
Two ahead of day today.
Yeah, you got the Chiefs and you got the Ravens, and things can start getting cloudy around here if you don't clear things up quick, fast, in a hurry.
Yeah, because I mean, look, honestly, they should have had win number 8 today, and they would have had win number 9 next week against Jacksonville. And then they've got, after that bye, Dolphins at the Chiefs, home for the Ravens at the Titans. Like you mentioned, that's tough. That's as tough as it gets. And then you would expect them to default to 10 wins here. Now, I'm not saying they're going to lose 3 in a row because, like you did mention, they can beat anybody still. Like they like the Titans can go and have a week where everything clicks right and everything goes right, and they win the football game.
In those, what is it, 3 games in 11 days or whatever?
Yeah.
They can go 2-3 or 3-3. And everybody will say now they're Super Bowl contenders now.
Yeah.
And then the following week lose to the Titans. Like, anything is possible. When you don't do the fundamental stuff well, like the little stuff well, anything is possible. When you allow consistently on third down pressure up the middle, you are asking to lose ball games. You're asking to get your quarterback hurt. Those are simple things that are not allowable.
Yep.
But that consistently have happened throughout this year.
Oh, man. Like you said, it's time to get away from this. It's time to get away from it and not think about it for a minute. Wade, appreciate you as always. I hope the volleyball match is going better for you over there.
Looking good. Up 2 sets to 1 against Missouri and up in the third set, 17-14. So hopefully we can close it out and I'll feel better about my day. And my daughter just scored as we're talking. Hopefully I'll feel better about my day because my squad, we didn't show up and finish the way we need to finish today, and so we took an L. So hopefully the Bulldogs can get me back right.
Well, for the world's biggest Mississippi State Bulldogs volleyball fan, that's Wade Smith. I am Michael Connor. Thank you guys for stopping by, watching live. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to the channel. Go and search for Locked On Texans anywhere that you get your podcast to get this show in the audio form. We'll be back next weekend, hopefully after a win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. You guys enjoy the rest of your